Hi and welcome back to another video of jPlay. I am Marcus and today I will walk you through some actual rounds of Legends by Knut Happel and Christian Fiore, published by Ravensburger. In Legends, players are adventurers and they're all part of the club of adventurers, which can be found here. And basically you want to gain the most prestige points out of collecting knowledge all around those mystic places. So for example, you can discover some secrets of the Sasquatch or Bigfoot here, down to the mysteries of Atlantis. It's relatively abstract, so don't expect too many narratives here. But overall, the board looks really gorgeous. I like these puzzle pieces here, reminding me of Darkest Night, which I will be doing a playthrough anytime soon as well. But how do you learn all those secrets? That's pretty simple. And here I noticed someone lost his book. Is basically by collecting those knowledge cards here, which are available all around the game board. Some of those knowledge cards are presented here face up, so you know what you're exchanging, but there are also spaces on the board where you just draw blindly from the draw deck. The game ends after the last player reached this 75-week spot here, so you see this nice little goblet. All those goblets that you see around those tracks will more or less trigger a scoring round, and whoever has the most prestige points will be the most famous adventurer and of course will win the game. I will walk you through some rounds of a 3-player game today because I think it really shines with 3 or 4 players. You can play it with 2. There are some, let's say, adjustments to the core rules, but nothing really big. I think you start with some more cards and such, but really this game shines with 3 or 4 players. And here we have Clark Lewis, the Honorable Sir Franklin Cunningham, and the famous Dr. David Hammertone. I love this name. You see, those are, or this is pretty much the German version of the game, but the game itself is really language independent. Of course, the rules right now are only available in German, at least the last time I checked, but I'm pretty sure there will be English rules coming out pretty soon, and then you will be able to play this game right away. As part of the setup, both the first and the second player will start with 5 of those knowledge cards, let's put it that way. The third player will draw 6 cards and the fourth player as well, so this will balance out the starting player order. So in this case, the, not sure, gray-brown player will go first with his 5 cards, and as part of his setup, each player will put 2 of his cards into the Club of Adventurers face down. Why are you doing this? You want to make sure that your locations will score and that you gain the most prestige points out of your knowledge you gathered. This is a pretty good hand, so you have 2 of those double symbols. This is the elephant graveyard. This is actually, I don't know what it is, to be honest. I think that's the Lost Ark, right? That's the Lost Ark. Everyone knows Indiana Jones, of course. So which 2 cards will he place into the Club of Adventurers? I think we will go with those 2. So a yellow and a green one. You have to really remember those cards you put into the Club of Adventurers, because you want to make sure that you're placing your knowledge books onto the right locations. The same player is now also allowed to place one of his bookmarkers to one of the locations, and I think we will go with this elephant graveyard here, and your first book always goes to this value 3 here, which can provide you potential 3 victory points during each scoring rounds, basically. So you can really score a lot of points in this game. And yeah, this was pretty much it, but no other player will also be allowed to place his book on the same location. Those are the 2 cards from the black player, who will place his first book into the Amber Room here in St. Petersburg, I believe. And the white player will also place his 2 cards into the Club of Adventurers and starts his quest for knowledge here in Atlantis. All our players start here at the Club of the Adventurers, and as soon as it's your turn, you basically have to do 2 things. For once, you have to move, so you cannot stay at your same place, so no lingering here. And then at your new target location, you can take another action. For once, you can more or less engage the space here, or you can do a book action, basically placing a new book onto this location here, depending on the cards you are about to play. And this is pretty much it, what you are doing. And as mentioned, as soon as all the players have passed or reached those counting spaces or scoring spaces here, we will see a scoring round. I will explain to you what the difference between this golden and the silver goblet here actually is, but for now just keep that in mind. When the last player, really the last player, comes to this place, then it would be time to do an actual scoring. The turn order is determined by this time track around this one, and you might notice or recognize this mechanism from games like Thieves, for example. So those are not the victory points, those are really the time track of how many weeks you have spent in order to travel to different locations or to do the book action, so basically to study the things you are about to experience at this new location and something like that. So usually it's always the player who is last on this time track, unless you are on the same space as the other adventurers here. In this case, you follow from top to bottom. But for example, if it would be like this, then it would be the turn of the white player and so on. I think you get the picture here. So in this case, brown will go first, but I guess brown is a gray in this case. The book looks more brownish to me, but the figure actually is really more gray. So it's now the gray player, and the gray player is called Clark Lewis. As you know, he plays the yellow and the green card into the club of adventurers, so he also wants to make sure to get some more knowledge around those places like the elephant graveyard here or the Lost Ark down there. Good thing is he already started with some points here, but you can always have more. So whenever this has been scored, you gain those amount of victory points. That's for sure. If you make it up here, you get 7 victory points each time that this location will be scored. So I think for him it would be a good idea to increase his knowledge down there, but it's also important to get some more knowledge around the other locations as well. Okay, I think for his movement actions he will move down here to the pyramids. This costs him 1 week, so whenever you pass one of this hourglass here, this costs you 1 week. He could move further, basically down there, then he would have to spend 2 weeks, but really time is very, very rare. Even though you have around 75 weeks, time is really running short on you relatively soon. So this was pretty much his first week he spent, and now he can either engage the space here, and I explain to you in a second what those spaces do, or he could do a book action. Unfortunately, he does not have enough of knowledge cards to place his book on this location here, because this value is now relevant here. So if you want to place his book on this symbol or on this space here, he would have to spend 2 of those black symbols, 3, 4 and 5 accordingly. Right now he doesn't have those, so he cannot take the book action here. So that's really unfortunate. So I think he will go for the action down here for engaging the space. For once, this action costs him 2 additional weeks. So that's 1 and 2. And this action allows him to clear out one of those open cards here. So basically the whole pile will be discarded. Then they will be drawn newly, and then he would be allowed to take 2 cards out of those 5. And I think he really don't want some of the other players to gain those awesome wild cards here. So I think he will start to get rid. No, he will not take this one. Maybe he will take this one here, because this is much closer to the other players. So those cards will just be discarded. Then we will reveal 5 new cards, and out of those 5 he will now be allowed to take 2 cards. And this is really not too bad, as there are 2 double cards present here. So I think he will absolutely take those 2 cards with 2 symbols and then 2 new cards will be revealed immediately. And unfortunately, there is another wild card showing up. But this was pretty much the turn of the gray player. And then we come to the black player. Black will move here to the amber room. This costs him a week. And I think he will do a book action here. He has already his book placed here, but that's not a problem. He can still pay more in order to increase the knowledge of the amber room here. So this will be 1 card, 2 cards worth 2 symbols. So he will pump up his knowledge up to 5 points here. So he will score 7 victory points each time that this room will be scored. But playing those 2 cards will also cost him 1-2 more weeks, and this is pretty good because he's now in the lead in respect to the turn order. So when the white player has taken his turn and he really will pass both of them, then black will go before the gray player. So this was overall a pretty good move for the black player. Of course, he's now really running short on cards, but he can make sure to score a lot of points here in the amber room. White will go crazy, and I think he will move 2 spaces here to the Forbidden City, that is, I believe. So this costs him 2 weeks. I will adjust that accordingly. And here we'll encounter the space here. So this will cost him 4 weeks. This is really a lot, but this allows him to take any 3 cards from the display here. So he will totally go for this wild card. He will also go for the red card here, and I think he will also go for another blue card, which he might use later. Yeah, I think this is what he will do. Let's replenish the board. Oh, this is also a great one. Awesome. But of course, this also cost him 1, 2, 3, 4 additional weeks to get there. Black is now in a bad situation. Originally he was planning to go to the red space and also grab some of those cards here. You can end your movement on the space with another adventurer, but this means you have to give him 1 card, or each other adventurer give them a card who is present there. Right now he only has 1 card and he really wants to keep this card, so I think he will not go there. So I'm really tempted to go to the Himalaya location here, to Sasquatch. So I think he will move 1-2 weeks up there. And as he's really running low on cards, he will also engage the space here, which costs him 5 weeks in total. But then he would be allowed to draw 5 cards from the draw deck. So let's do that. And this wasn't actually a bad draw, to be honest. So especially those 2 double cards here, which are always helpful. And I should mention that you have an unlimited hand size. You can hold in your hand how many cards you want to have, but in most cases it's not wise to do so. Checking the time track, we see that it's clearly the turn of the gray player. And I think gray will move 1-2 spaces here to the amber room, and there for 1 week he will engage the room here, which lets him exchange 1 or 2 cards with one of the cards in the public display. And I think he will get rid of this card, or better, will it replace with this red card down there. As this was just 1 week of knowledge gathering, he's still first player right now, so he can take an immediate next turn. And this is really what this game is all about, managing your time wisely. And this is really something that this game does really well. And I think he will move 1-2 spaces down here to the Lost Ark. And I think here he will take a book action. So he will discard 1 card, and 1 card costs him only 1 week. So you're not paying by symbols, you really pay by the amount of cards you play. This is why those double symbols are really incredibly powerful. So in total, the move costs him 2 points, and then he has to pay 1 more point for placing this card. And as those were 2 knowledge points, he's allowed to place his book on this section 2 here. So right now this space would also score him 2 additional victory points. Then it's the white player's turn, and I think white will move 1-2 spaces here to the pyramids. This costs him 2 weeks, and I think here he will also do a book action worth 2 symbols, but only costs him 1 additional week. So that's 1, 2, 3 weeks in total, which also means he will take the next turn. And of course he would be allowed to place his book here accordingly. Those spaces are not really secure, because if the next player goes in here and also plays a card or 2 symbols worth of knowledge here at the pyramids, then he would basically push this book here away and back to the player board. But of course, if the other players go here or there, nothing really bad happens to this one. It's still white's turn, so I think he will move back to the Club of Adventurer. And here he will also take this action here. I think this is the only thing that you can do here. You can place new cards into the Club of Adventurer from 1 to 3, and each card costs you 1 week basically, and you are allowed to take 1 card from the draw pile independent of how many cards you placed in here. So I think he will place just 1 card, so in total that were 2 weeks. So we already see that gray will be next, but he's still allowed to grab 1 additional card. Gray will move here to the Forbidden City for 1 week. And there he will take the book action, playing 2 cards worth 3 symbols, and costs him 2 weeks basically, because it's just 2 cards. So that's 1 and 2, and we clearly see that black will go next. Black will move 1-2 weeks down here to the Lost Ark, and I think he will also take the book action down here. So he could now decide just to play this card. This would make sure that gray would be bumped off this track here. But I think he still has 1 more card in his hand which he wants to use. So these are 3 points worth of knowledge, so he can place his book on this space. But this of course costs him 2 additional weeks, and white will be next. White is sensing that he wants to have a piece of the cake here at the Amber Room. So I think he will move with 1 week to this space. There he will also take the book action, and he will really go wild again. He will play 3 cards, so 1 orange and 2 wild cards, which allows him to place his book on the 3 space here. But of course these were 3 cards, so he has to spend 3 more weeks studying the Amber Room. For 2 more weeks I think gray will move here to the Elephant Graveyard. And again we see another book action here. Only costs him 1 additional week, but with this he can bump up his knowledge around the Elephant Graveyard up to 7 victory points here. So he's really an expert around those elephants here. And this also costs him only 1 week. So in total he has to spend 3 weeks making sure that he will come before the white player. Then it's black. He will move over to China, and I think he will then take, or will engage, the space here. So I think for once he will take the purple one, the blue one, and this green double one. That's actually a no-brainer. So let's reveal the next set of cards. Wow, a lot of yellow cards. Wow, the next player to get there really will be lucky. But gray is really low on cards, and he don't want to give this card to the black player what he currently has. So I think he will move here to Atlantis for 1 week, and there he will also engage the space for 4 weeks. 1, 2, 3, and 4, allowing him to grab 1, 2, 3, 4 cards. I think white wants to follow the black player here, or basically he sees, hey, this might be a potential candidate to gain some additional victory points, so he will travel down here. Now he ended his movement on this space, so he has to give the black player 1 of his cards, and I think this will be this one, a gray card. So basically King Arthur card, and now he would be allowed to engage the space, either to place a book or to engage the space directly. But I think in this case he will do a book action, allowing him to place his book on this space here as well. But this costs him an additional 2 weeks, but as he's still well behind, he will take the next turn as well. So I think he's really low on cards. He's basically down to 0, so he will move there, and then he will take this action here, which costs him 1, 2, 3 more weeks, but he would be allowed to grab 2, 3 cards. Let's see what he drew. A purple one, gray one, and a blue one. Not entirely great, but yeah, he really didn't have another choice. Then it's black. Black will move up here for 1 week, and he will also engage this space. This also costs him only 1 week, and he would be allowed to exchange up to 2 cards with any revealed cards anywhere on the board. And I think this will be the very first card he gets, and the wild card down there will be his second card. Overall, not a bad turn for him. Then it's gray player's turn, and I think gray will move up there for 1 week, and I think he will also engage the space. So he's allowed to take 3 of the cards here. I think he will go for this one, that one, and that one. Let's go into his hand. Then we will reveal 3 new cards. Wow, this is also great. And therefore he spent additional 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, which means he will be allowed to place the golden goblet, which really makes sure that one of your spaces will get scored, no matter what cards are being drawn out of this Club of Adventurers deck. And he really wants to make sure that this location will get scored here, because he has some victory points here, and he's not sure if all the other players have put some cards into the Club of Adventurers. So with this way you can really make sure that your location will get scored. This is great for the black player, who will immediately move down here to this location and will take another book action, playing 2 cards, so wild card and this double symbol here, which means he's allowed to place his card on this 3 spot here, bumping down all of the other players, and this white book goes back to Dr. David Hammertone, and he's really annoyed with this action, but this is what this game is all about. Those 2 cards costs him 1, 2 additional week, and then we come to the white player. And I think white will move 1, 2 spaces here to Atlantis. There he will also place another book here, so he can increase his knowledge of Atlantis, which is a good thing. This costs him an additional week. Good thing is he's still allowed to take another turn, so therefore he will move 1, 2 spaces up here to the Amber Room, and here he will engage the room, exchanging 2 cards, and I think he will take this card here, and he will also go for this card. So in total he has now 3 yellow symbols, which is a great thing, because he really wants to pay the black player back what he did to him, bumping him off here of the red or of the Forbidden City up there. So far we haven't seen a scoring round, but this will change after the activation of the black player. But he's allowed to complete his entire round, and then we would immediately see the scoring before we go to the next player. So let's see what he will do. And black continues to be mean. I think he will move 1, 2, 3 weeks here to Atlantis. He will take the book action as well. He will play 4 symbols, so basically 3 cards, which means he will bump the white player again 1 space below. Good thing is he's still on the track, but he really just lost 2 victory points when this space will get scored. So let's count the 1, 2, 3 additional weeks, and now we will see the actual scoring. So we will remove this silver goblet here. Now we will take all the cards that are in the Club of the Adventurers, and I was really playing very poorly. Normally you should have placed a lot more cards into that, but you really give them a good shuffle. And now you reveal so many cards until you revealed 5 different locations, or until you run out of locations. So that's yellow, that's green, that's orange, that's yellow, that's green, that's blue, and that's blue. All of the locations will get scored, and on top of that also the location with a golden goblet here. Let's start down there with the yellow location. So we clearly see that black will take 3 victory points and gray will take 2 victory points. So that's 2 for gray, 3 for black, but that's not all, as we will also distribute the cards to the players that are present here. And you always start with the highest player, or with the most knowledgeable player about the location. So for example, if this would be a double symbol, then this card would go to the black player, and so on. So in this case it's clearly 1 card to him, 1 card to him. If it would there be a third card, then this third card would also go to the black player. So both players basically score an additional point each. Then it's green, or the elephant graveyard, and gray is really happy here. He's the only player present here, so he gets 7 points plus those 2 points. So he just skyrocketed from 3 to 12 victory points. Awesome. Then it's orange, so black gets 7 victory points, white only 3 victory points, and unfortunately this card goes only to the black player. So in total black just scored 8 additional victory points, bringing him also to 12 victory points in total, and white just scored his first 3 points. Then it's blue, and 5 points for black, 3 points for white. Both of them get 1 card, so it's 6 points for black and 4 for white. So that's 18 points already for the black player, and only 7 in total for white. And last but not least, we see the scoring of the golden goblet here, so it's 3 points for black and 2 for gray. Next we place the golden goblet onto the next scoring space here. So again, the first player who passes or lands on this space can place this golden goblet wherever he likes. And then each player is allowed to place 1 card to the Club of Adventure. You don't have to do that, and in a 2-player game that's 2 cards that you can, or up to 2 cards that you can place there. So I think gray will place the green card here. Of course the other players don't know that. Really wanted to make sure that this elephant graveyard might be scored. And I think the black player will also play 1 card here to the Club of Adventurers, and then we would continue the game with the player who is farthest behind on this time track here. And as I mentioned, this goes on until we have scored the whole thing 4 times, and whoever has the most prestige or victory points will be the winner of Legends. And I guess I will end my walkthrough of Legends here. You should have a good understanding of how this game actually feels, if it's something for you and your gaming group, and how much it differs from games like Thebes. I really have to say, I love the idea of this time track here. Of course, it's really not that new, and that you are basically in control of how much time you spend, and when you are getting next, should I really spend a lot of time to get a lot of cards, or should I do baby steps in order to two turns in a row or something like that. This is really a very neat mechanic, and I also really do like the artwork of this game. The board is really beautiful. The cards themselves, yeah, they are kind of okay. The character boards are pretty neat as well. So overall, it's really a very nice presentation. I really hope you enjoyed my little walkthrough of Legends here, and I really hope to see you soon in one of my next videos. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, like my Facebook page, follow me on Twitter. Well, that's a hell of a lot of social media, but I think you got the message. And yeah, hope to see you soon, and until then, bye bye.